Good afternoon, everyone. A little bit of a mixed picture here in the North American equity markets. The theme continues to be the selling of tech shares and a rotation into more of the cyclical value-oriented areas of the market, meaning energy as well as financials. So those really were the two leading sectors, both here in Canada as well as south of the border. So that reflation trade is continuing to take place. And again, quite a bit of pressure on some of those tech shares, leading the NASD to decline for 6 days in a row. The S&P 500 actually broke a 5-day losing streak, ending in positive territory. The Dow also in positive territory. The TSX, though, down on the day, but off the lows of the day. And that's the key theme here, is that investors did trade the markets higher into the closing bells. It looked as though it was going to be a real weak start to the trading day today. But then, of course, we did hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell continuing his dovish outlook, basically saying that rates are going to stay lower for longer and that any inflationary signs are transitory. So in other words, the Fed has your back. And we've also known, of course, since the financial crisis, don't fight the Fed. If they're going to keep rates lower for longer, that tends to be very supportive for risk assets. We also heard from the Bank of Canada Governor today, Tiff Macklem, also out with another dovish commentary. So that is probably why we saw a buyback into the equity markets, and that's why we didn't close on the lows of the day and kind of rebounded off of that initial sell-off. Now, away from that, I'd also just point out, as it relates to the energy trade, which continues to do very well, we did see WTI up by about 4% yesterday, essentially flat on the day today. But you've got more and more buy-in into this energy trade. JP Morgan, for one, saying that perhaps we might be at the beginning of a commodity super cycle. You're seeing the highest level in terms of interest in about 8 years, specifically from the hedge fund community, again, buying back into this commodity complex that has really been kind of left on the sidelines for so many years now, with so much focus instead on buying the go-go growth names, those tech names. And that's also why you're seeing a little bit of a sell-off here, people rotating out of that trade. Away from that as well, when you think about what the energy market means for the Canadian dollar, we are so often viewed as a commodity currency. So on the back of that, you continue to see relative strength of the Canadian dollar versus that US dollar, now at about the highest level we've seen in 3 years. Breaking it down a little bit further in terms of some stock-specific stories, importantly here in Canada, we did see the Canadian banks kick off earnings with some very good results. We had BMO generating revenue of $6.9 billion in the previous quarter. That was beating expectations, which was for around $6 billion. Also, 27% increase in profit for BMO, and importantly as well, the provisions for credit losses well below expectations, setting that stock up by 3%. Bank of Nova Scotia, also some strong results there, beating on the revenue line, beating on the bottom line as well. $8 billion is their revenue. They did have some weakness in their international business, but their wealth management business seemed to make up for some of those losses. And also importantly as well, they also reduced their provisions for credit losses. That means that they're less concerned that people will fault on their loans. So both of those taken together sent those stocks up, BNS up by 2.8%, BMO up by 3%, as I mentioned. Rounding out the picture here, just as we take a look at the TSX, we did, as I mentioned, see some financial strength, some energy strength as well. Healthcare was down on the cannabis companies being a little bit weak. IT was down on Shopify with their share issuance, which we talked a little bit about yesterday. That did weigh on that share, which obviously comprises a heavier weighting for the IT sector. Gold was down as well, but I would also point out that with respect to the energy trade, Crescent Point Energy got an upgrade over at Scotia, setting that stock higher today. So we're going to keep our eyes, of course, on the earnings picture. I should also mention as well, from a big picture perspective, of course, there's the virtual meeting between Prime Minister Trudeau and President Biden. The view there, of course, is what will the partnership roadmap look like? Canada, of course, wanting some exemptions from this Buy America theme. And we'll see how that all plays out. We'll leave it there. We'll see you tomorrow. Bank earnings will be front and center once again.